But no, if you guys have Disney questions, things you want to know, things you don't know that you need answers to, planning for an upcoming trip, we're just kind of hanging tonight and answering and chatting. And so
any major differences
Yep.
for the Disneyland app and My Disney Experience? Disneyland app is not as good. If you don't like the My Disney Experience, it's very similar though. If you're used to using the My Disney Experience, it's laid out similarly, except for like the main menu. Everything's kind of in different places for the most part. So it just feels very disoriented. Which is kind of like when you go from the Magic Kingdom to Disneyland and you're like, wait, things aren't where they're supposed to be.
Right.
Just embrace that feeling and you'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar enough that like there was one trip that Kate went on to Disneyland and she needed help with stuff, and I was able to literally, as I was watching her live, download the app, log into it, and figure out what I needed to help her with like wait times and stuff.
Yeah.
So like overall, it's not that different. Recommendations for really fussy toddlers. I'm assuming you mean like taking them into the parks. You really got to know your kiddo or your nephew, if it's your nephew in this instance, and have things along that will help occupy their time, I think is first what I would suggest. If that's fidgets or toys or coloring or whatever you use. And then just know their cues. So know when they're overwhelmed, know when they're sleepy, when they're hungry, all of that, being able to kind of anticipate those needs can be super helpful as well.
Yeah.
And anything else you'd add?
Try to keep them on their sleep nap schedule as much as possible. That can really help you because it's only going to get worse if they are fussy and they miss their sleep. Then they get overtired, and then everybody's day is tough. So even if it's a nap in the stroller, if your kids sleep in the stroller, I think it's your nephew that you're talking about, but nap in the stroller if you can. Even better though, go take a break in the room at least for that afternoon nap. Sometimes they can catch a cat nap if they're probably in toddler stage, they're probably out of morning nap zone, but get that afternoon nap in like a cool, dark place. That's a win for a Disney trip.
Yeah, for sure. Super important. A good place to nap would be on the train. You're not wrong, Jackson. If you need to catch a breather,
That is true.
The train is a great place to do that. And there are several other places you just kind of got to do some research and see. And we've done tons of content on going to, taking your kids and getting out of the heat. We just did last week. So definitely take a look and see at some of our other content. And if you've got further questions, let us know. Nap in Hall of Presidents.
Yeah, that is one. But if you have a fussy toddler, like you don't want to be in a place where you might like ruin the show for other people. Like, I mean, right. I don't care. It's Disney and I'm a parent and it doesn't ruin it for me, but
right.
It's, it's always very stressful, I think, as a parent to take them into a place where they're supposed to be quiet and you can't get them quiet. And then it's just like anxiety. I can't for me. So
yeah,
I don't, unless they're already quiet, then it's a great place.
Right. Exactly. This is good for anyone, not just parents. Yeah. When I do even just like trips without my kids or pre-kids, I always took a break too. Cause it's just, even just a half hour to an hour can sometimes be a game changer when you're trying to do really long park days.
Yeah. It is tough though in Disney World because it's so far to get back to your hotel. Like some days I'm just like, I'm going to find a good air conditioned place to put my feet up. And like what Jeff says, like Wilderness Lodge is a great chill spot. Maybe heading to a resort in a lobby and just putting your feet up and relaxing for a little bit in the AC if you just need to get away from the crowds. Like that sometimes can save you time if you can't. I mean, like a resort that's close to the park, obviously. Like if you can't, if it's a long way to travel back to your resort, you're welcome to go sit in a lobby of any resort in Disney and just take time out. Sometimes I do that if I can't get all the way back. So.
And even just finding those places in the parks, like we said, sometimes. And we've talked about if you've got kiddos that get overstimulated really easily, or if you get overstimulated really easily, Disney's got some guides on their website, and they're pinned on our Mom Street channel in the Discord. If you're not in the Pocket Fam Carp Discord, that link is up in the bio. You can find them in the pinned messages where they've got like lists of spaces that are typically quiet. The only issue that I have with their list is I don't think anything on their Disney World list, when I was just looking at it the other day for someone who was asking about it, is inside or air conditioned. I think they're all technically outdoor locations, which I understand because In Disney, 9 times out of 10, your inside locations are going to be stores or they're going to be restaurants.
They don't want you taking up the seats
Exactly.
in restaurants.
Exactly. Which I totally understand. So take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, the Grand Californian is a really good place at Disneyland to kind of get away from the crowds for a little bit and rest and relax. And it's not too far of a walk either. And if you're a Disney Worlder, it's like no walk. So that's a great place to go. It's definitely quieter. And there's even, if it's the colder months, they have a nice fireplace there. So you can sit by the fire and relax. It's really nice. Piano music's great. So, but there is music there. So sometimes, just like Grand Floridian. So if you're looking for a very quiet place, just recognize there might be music, and it's Disney, so there's people. So
Right. You're never going to completely escape all of them.
yeah. Is Disneyland generally cooler than Disney World? Yes-ish. Disneyland. So Disneyland is more like that dry heat. So it doesn't feel as like miserable as Florida. Like miserable, like humidity is what gets to me there. Like I feel like I can't ever. I'm always sweating, and I feel like it helps. It's just not as oppressive, but it is. It isn't. It can get intense. It can get very hot there. The thing with Disneyland is there's not a ton of indoor air conditioned places that you can just chill out like there is in Disney World, because they know it's not quite as bad. But Disneyland is also, for the most part, not in all places, it's shadier. There's a lot more shade there and a lot more benches to sit down in the shade. So that is, and it's smaller, so you're not walking as far. I think that helps too.
Yeah. So Carly, you're not wrong, but the thing about Animal Kingdom is I feel like the trees trap the heat.
It does, yeah.
So while it is a lot more shaded, I also feel like it's a lot more hot when you visit there. That was the only park on my last trip when I visited that I had my portable fan out and was like, I need to be inside out of the heat because but the rest of the week, pretty much I was fine, but it was just, there's always something different about that Animal Kingdom heat and humidity over there.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Kate asked, what ride should I do first in Epcot? There's a lot of variables on that question. It depends on what your most important rides are. I will always tell people that whatever ride is the top priority on your list is what you should ride first, because then after that, anything else that you get is just a bonus. If you're one of those people that's like, I want to ride it all. If you're going at rope drop, I would suggest either Remy or Frozen, which is, I know what everyone says, but it's really the truth. If you're using Genie Plus, that could change because you could book one of those and do something else. So it really just depends on you. It also depends on your travel party. If you're going with a bunch of teenage boys that don't care about Frozen, then that changes things, so it really just depends on a lot of different variables. I know that wasn't a really great answer to your question, but that's what I got.
It does depend. Yeah, and everybody goes to different things. Sometimes it really depends on who you are. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So Carly asked, how's the weather in September? So September is like beginning of hurricane season. So it could be very hot. It can be very stormy. It can be very rainy. So it's just one of those things where you got to wait till you get a little closer to see. But it could be a little bit all over the place, unfortunately. Like September, October, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in September a couple times. And one time I got there just before a hurricane hit. So that was fun. That was Dorian. So I was there for Dorian in my boardwalk hotel room. And that was great. And then I would say it's just really hot still then. Unless you go later, September can start to get a little bit better. But I'd say it can rival August for the heat. It's very hot. So not a fan. I do like September in Disneyland. I feel like that's a good weather time.
Good time of year. End of November weather. Cooler. Cooler. Can be cold, can be warm. It's a little bit all over the place. It really just depends. It's so hard with weather because when we went even in October, the week before, the highs were in the low 70s. Mm-hmm. The week that we went, the highs were in the upper 80s. And we melted. So
Yeah.
you just never really know that swing. It depends on storms coming through, because there was a big storm that went through right before we got there, which is why it was so cool. And then we caught the reheat during our trip. So it really just depends.
Father's Day is not too terribly crowded. I'd say like once it starts to get, it's interesting because Disneyland is different than Disney World, because the summer is pretty busy in Disneyland, but the summer in Florida is so brutally hot that it tends to be lighter crowds in general. But any holiday usually has a little bit higher crowds, if not massively higher crowds, if it's a bigger holiday. So I tend to avoid the holidays. Mother's Day isn't usually that bad. So I think Father's Day is probably similar.
And you've got to think mid-June, you are going to still run into like summer vacations that people are taking. So even though it may not be holiday busy, you're still going to have fairly decent crowds, regardless of Father's Day, just because it's like mid to end of June. That's a lot of people's vacation time that they take. So
yeah, that's so true. So I know it's backwards for you guys, but we made free water, like places to get free water in the parks, for each of the Disney parks. This is on our Mom Street USA Instagram page.
yes.
And so you can just screenshot them. It's in our store, in a highlight in our stories, and you can screenshot them and use them for whenever you go on your trip. There's also Disneyland and California Adventure, but it breaks it down. I know it's backwards for you guys, to fountain dispensers, counter service like free cups of water, and water bottle refill stations. So you can find exactly where all the free water is in the park. So you can, so you can stay hydrated this summer.
Yes.
And of course, this is also in our Discord. If you're a part of our Discord, there's a link in our bios for that. But there's, we posted that on our Mom Street channel, so you can just easily save those images. So.
Taylor said a lot of people say August is low crowd, but I'm not convinced. So I think it depends on when in August you go.
Yeah.
The first week in August is still going to be summer crowds. If you get to like the third week of August, you're going to be seeing lower crowds until you hit a spike for Labor Day. So the third and fourth weeks of August are usually not too terrible, historically speaking. Again, but it's been so hard since everything reopened after the pandemic. The crowd levels are all over the place. So I'm speaking more so from like what used to be the norm, because that's like what has been ingrained in my brain as far as like crowd calendars. It could change, because like the week that we went in October historically was not a busy week, but it was the busiest I've ever seen the parks. And I've been like 4th of July, and it rivaled 4th of July the week that we were there. Magic Kingdom was crazy the night we tried to do fireworks.
Yeah.
Insane. And I was like, why are you here?
I feel like it's starting to reset a little bit. I feel like it's starting to go back that direction, because I feel like more people are like back to work, back to school, back to normal, whatever that is. I feel like, so I feel like I've just from visiting the park so much this past year, I'm starting to see it ease that way, but it's not 100%. Like, you can't predict it.
It's so unpredictable because so many people are still working remotely. So that you see a ton of people, which like pre-pandemic, I don't feel like you ever saw this, but like now you see tons of people just like hanging out at tables with laptops doing their work from inside the park.
What?
So it's like
I would never do that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you never know, because people's schedules are so much more flexible. And I feel like people are not opposed to pulling their kids out of school or as much, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the pandemic showed us all that life can be very short. So I feel like people really take that to heart now. And so like you see more frequent vacations that are not during like normal break times.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not saying it's like back to normal or predictable in any way yet, but it for sure is. I feel like it's just starting to head in that direction is all. So I would agree it's not predictable in any way. And we're starting to see some new patterns emerge too from what used to be like Magic Kingdom being super busy on Mondays. Like, I don't remember that being like a huge thing.
It was a little,
around,
but it wasn't
like
it wasn't
to this extent.
No.
Yeah.
So like previously, because like when I first started getting into Disney, like 2013, 2014, and really like looking at those types of patterns, it was always like, you don't do Magic Kingdom on a Monday,
Yeah.
And you don't do Magic Kingdom on a Friday because most people wanted to start and end their trip. But that has all shifted a little bit because of like new things at Hollywood Studios, new things at Epcot, like with the new big ticket rides, like with the whole Star Wars area opening up with, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it shifted that a little bit. So it's interesting now that we're getting back to that. And I wonder if it's partially because of Tron.
Yeah, that could be. It's so new and everybody's like, I'm going to start there and we're going to go on the newest ride and it's going to be great. So that would make sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Someone asked, what do you think the new Epcot fireworks will be?
You do always show up, Kirk. It's true.
I don't know, but if Disneyland fireworks are any indication, I'm extremely excited for the music that they use. And that's really like, that's what I personally care about. Fireworks are fine. I'm not like, I prefer the projections and like that kind of stuff.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Back up. Okay. I like skip the show when it's just projections in Disneyland because half the time they cancel it anyway, or it's like weekday and they don't have fireworks during weekdays in the school year. So I'm like,
it's more of just like an auditory, like I don't enjoy the sound of fireworks.
That makes sense.
So like I would rather just like I focus my attention on the visual.
You would like Small World.
Yes. So I've seen the Small World. So like if we get anything like that, I'm going to be totally happy. As long as the music is good, that's what like matters to me personally. So I'm hoping just for really good arrangements of like classic Disney songs. And I really hope that they don't not that I don't think they're going to do like Epcot Forever Kids Bop level, but I just really hope that they don't like mess with the arrangements too much. Like the way they did Harmonious was beautiful, and the arrangements that they did and all of that. So like take that plus the Disneyland 100 and just like squish it together.
Well, what plus World of Color, because we could add some sort of fountain-y thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I feel like let's pull something in, but not like the giant water tacos. Like let's just make it under the water and then like come up. Like come on.
Yeah, exactly, Jackson. The wondrous projections are just so cool.
They are amazing. That show is so good. It's so good. I cry every time. It's just so good.
They should just extend Epcot Forever. Get out, Kirk.
No, World of Color to Epcot, but like make it its own brand, you know, its own Epcot version with all the countries and stuff. You could do something really cool with the kind of World of Color technology. Yeah. I think World of Color is my favorite Disney nighttime show, at least the original one. Yeah. Stay on property. That's a safe question now. Where did I stay on this last trip? I'm trying to remember.
My last trip, so I was fortunate enough to stay with our friend Becca, who is DVC. And so we ended up staying at Saratoga, which I liked Saratoga overall. It is a very large resort. And the only downside that I had was just the bus stops are really tricky to navigate because there are 5 of them. And we happened to be staying near the main building, so we were the last bus stop. But there was only one time where there was a full bus that we couldn't get on, and we had to wait for the second one to come around. But overall, I thought that it was really pretty, and I liked the food options in the quick service there. So I liked it overall. I know a lot of people don't like Saratoga, and again, I agree, Rick. I don't get the hate because I've had nothing but good experience from being there.
Okay, I think the Saratoga hate comes from. So I stayed in Saratoga for the first time, and I did stay right next to a bus stop, which was actually really convenient. However, I've stayed in a lot of the Disney resorts, and it is definitely one of my least favorite deluxe resorts because the deluxe level is so high and it feels like a value on the outside with a small deluxe room on the inside. The rooms are small. I don't get a table and chairs. Like, it's weird that there's no table and chairs in those villas. It's a couch until you convert it to a bed and then you've got nothing, you know? So I was like, I needed a desk and stuff. I didn't have any of that. I think it's frustrating that the hallways are outdoors for a deluxe, so it does not feel like I don't know, the lobby is almost non-existent, so there's no like piano player in the lobby or like wonderful place to chill. There's none of that. I feel like the thing that really got me about Saratoga was the like call to the races that I think is with the pool. And it's like I was trying to sleep, and it was like every hour for how many hours it is.
And so I remembered you saying that, and Becca and I were like, we didn't hear it once.
I must have been near the pool.
We were right, but is it the main pool that was right next to like the quick service in the lobby? Is that the pool that they did it from? Or was it the other pool?
I don't know. I didn't spend that much time at the
because
resort.
Becca and I were wondering because we both remembered you saying that, and we were like, we never heard it the entire time that we were there.
Gosh, it was every single day. It was so loud, and then my view was like old in golf carts playing golf.
Oh my
now,
gosh.
if it was like, a variety of people, I don't know, it could be interesting people watching, but it was not it for my view.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, it was a nice resort. I think my room was great. It was clean. It was updated. So if you're just in your room, it's fine.
Right.
But the buses stink.
Yeah.
And it's just not up to deluxe level.
Yeah. Kirk, yes, I believe Saratoga is less points per night than several other of the deluxe. So I think
it is cheaper. That's why I stayed there.
Yes, exactly. So that's part of it. Our good friend Kat at My Disney Vibes had suggested to Becca what locations to request. And so we ended up getting in the Springs location, which was literally like we were in the first building directly behind the main building. So we had that bus stop right in between. Like we were like, the location was perfect. So like that's part of it. And the other thing I will say is I don't stay at deluxe resorts because I just don't. So like that was legitimately my first experience at a deluxe resort. So like for me,
it would be nice then.
Yeah. Like, right. That's what I'm saying. Like for me, really stays at places like Pop and the All Stars, like it was fine. And Becca and I were in a studio because we didn't need extra space or anything. We just needed beds and, so like for me, I was like, oh, it was good. Like I had no issues other than the buses that one morning. So like different perspectives.
It's a fine hotel. It's fine. If you're not going to spend a lot of time in your room or at your resort, it's great. It's a good value. Go for it. Yeah. But if you're used to a deluxe level, just don't have your hopes up on that. Right. And the Port Orleans Hotel, so that's actually where I stayed this last time. I remembered. I just didn't remember. I stayed at Port Orleans Riverside this last time. I have stayed at Port Orleans. I've stayed at that one a couple times, and I've stayed at Port Orleans French Quarter, I think once. I prefer French Quarter if you're on like a more of a romantic trip, if you like don't have kids. I think Port Orleans Riverside is better for families overall. And I did like it. It's big. And the buses stink. So just, take that into account. And the food is like so-so in their dining. But they do have a new food item that's like a Korean chicken that's actually really good. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my family and I stayed at French Quarter a little over a year ago, and we loved it.
That's pretty, yeah.
We had, again, for people who typically stay at the All Stars and Pop, splurging a little to stay at a moderate. I loved it. My kids loved the pool area and the water slide. They loved it. My husband was really happy with the food options that they had because coming from a value food court, having some of those different options was a nice change of pace for us. Because literally, we stay at Pop, we stay at Animation, we stay at the All Star. It's just what's within our budget.
Yeah.
And we don't spend a ton of time in the rooms. So for us with our kids, typically it's more cost efficient for us to stay at a value and add an extra park day.
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean? So that's typically what we end up doing. So we loved French Quarter, but again, we didn't have to take the buses because we had a car with us. So I think had we had to take the buses, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much as I did. We loved being able to take the boat to Disney Springs. That was so much fun. My kids still talk about taking that boat ride. Yeah. I came across a video of that the other day and they were like, we loved that boat. Mm-hmm. So,
the boat is great to Springs, and the views of the Sasagula River is really lovely. I really did enjoy walking around Riverside this last time, but it's very confusing to walk around there, especially in the Alligator Bayou section. I got lost like twice. I had to pull out my app and figure out where I was because the signage is fine, but it's like, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention because I was tired at the end of the day. And I was like, oh, I'm not in the right direction. And so that was fun. And then I ran into another like couple that they were also lost as I was lost.
Oh, no.
And I was like, okay, it's not just me. This is really confusing. And not all the resorts that have a lot of rooms are like that, but this one is.
Yeah.
So just be prepared with your app. Make sure you have your map out so you know where you're going.
Yeah. Staying at Pop for the first time. I love Pop Century. I love that it has access to the Skyliner. I love just the refurbed rooms. I call them newly refurbed because to me they still are new, but I feel like they've been refurbed like 4 or 5 years ago now. So like it's not as new, but still, the refurbs that they did I think are really, really great over there.
Yeah, I've stayed in Pop many times, and it's I hate the theme, hate it with all of my existence. I hate that theme, but the rooms are really nice. So once I get in my room, I don't have to think about what the theme is because the rooms aren't themed to whatever.
Right, the insides are not themed. Yeah, yeah.
The theme of Pop Century, it also irks me that there's a giant like Duncan yo-yo because I'm pretty sure there was like a feud with Walt Disney and that company. So I'm like, there's just like very little like Disney
like,
about it. I'm just like, what is going on in this resort? It looks awful.
I prefer the theming at Art of Animation and like the lobby in Art of Animation. I could sit in the lobby and just like look at all the sketches and stuff for like hours.
That one I love.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I haven't stayed there, but I've seen it.
I've stayed in the 2 different family suites over there because when we typically travel with like our kids, especially when they were younger, it was easier for us to have a separate master for them. And we would put the kids in the master and then we would be on the outside and we would take the pull-out couch because it was just easier for their sleep. And then we could still like prep stuff in the night or in the morning before we woke them up.
Oh, Kirk, no, I disagree. Nope. Kirk, you can't own this one. I stay on property almost every month, if not every other month. No, the Skyliner is not overrated. It is 100%. Like, we will stay on a route with the Skyliner. It does go down if there's bad weather. The rest of the time, it is so fast. It is like, I am like 7 minutes from my resort versus an hour plus for the bus. So, nope. Team Skyliner, not overrated. You're wrong. 100%.
Yeah.
No, see, Kirk, I've never had to do that. I know the wait is bad for the Skyliner at the end of the night at Epcot if it's right after a show, but either leave before the show or just linger in Epcot long enough, do some shopping, whatever, until the show's over. So it's only that time around the show.
That has gotten worse because I know when Becca was just there, she was trying to take the Skyliner from Epcot to Hollywood Studios, and it was like quite a ways after the fireworks and after park close, and the line was still outrageous. Like, I think the lines at the Skyliner have gotten
than you
worse.
think it will, though. I have had to walk almost all the way down to Beach Club for it, and it took me 20 minutes. And I was like, that's not that bad. That's actually less time than I would have waited on the bus. It looks horrific when you look at the lines. But actually it's not as bad as you think it will be. It just it stinks because the line looks awful. But no, I'm going to say still better than a bus resort. Skyliner Resort, still better than a bus resort. So.
The only issue that like I agree is the fact that like if you're going to the Skyliner and then that becomes no longer an option, then to get to your next closest bus option is really far away.
Yeah, that is.
So, like, if you're going
because
out
you can go to beach. If you're trying to get back to the resort,
right, exactly. If
you're trying to go to another park, you could easily just go to beach club.
Absolutely. But if I'm trying to get back to Pop and I go to the Skyliner and it goes down while I'm standing in line, I then have to re-enter Epcot, go back out the front to the buses.
Yeah.
And you're right, Lem. If the bus goes down, you're already there, and they just call another bus.
I hate buses. I hate them with a passion because I've been burned so many times. They don't always give you an accurate time of when they're coming. Sure. Sometimes they'll send like 4 Animal Kingdom buses when everybody's waiting for Magic Kingdom. Like it's just a horrible system and they need to change it. And that's all I'll say about that. I'll move on.
Andy, you could go to the beach club to Springs and then your resort, but if I've got 2 tired kids in a stroller, that's not going to fly. Like I'll take the walk instead, because they're not going to have the patience to then be able to have that extra time. As an adult, that's definitely an option. But if I'm thinking with my kiddos, probably not. Well, no, Hollywood Studios is not as bad because you're a lot closer. If the same Hollywood Studios, a lot closer to the bus stops than you would be at Epcot. Because if you think about the way Epcot is set up, and if you don't know the way Epcot is set up, basically the Skyliner is at the side entrance of the park near between the UK and France and World Showcase. The buses are out the front past Spaceship Earth, the big golf ball. But at Hollywood Studios, they're both out the front of the park. So different story at Hollywood Studios. Eileen asked, what are the most comfy sneakers to wear at the parks?
It depends on, that's such a hard question. It always depends on you as a human being.
Yeah,
what
she
your
said, I wore Converse one time and I left my feet at the park.
No.
So if you're looking for sneakers, like real sneakers, I would say Brooks. That's what I know a lot of people use. That's what my husband uses. I'm not a sneaker person when I go to the parks personally, so I can't say from personal experience, but I know a lot of people that vouch for that brand.
Yeah, and I would say my standard advice to anybody that asks about shoes is wear what you feel really comfortable in for your foot shape and your situation. Some people have flat feet, some people have a raised arch, some people have got foot issues. Like whatever you're most comfortable in, wear it at home. Don't wear brand new shoes to the parks. That's a big no. Wear it at home for a while, even just around the house, whatever you need to do to break them in. Make sure they're really comfortable. Or your favorite pair of comfy shoes that you're used to walking in all the time. That's probably your best one. Definitely comfort and not style. I wear hideous flip-flops, but they're really comfortable. So
yeah, and a lot of people also will vouch for, like you've seen in the chat, people talk about wearing Crocs. I think that's a great option in Florida, especially when the weather's going to be unpredictable, because having Crocs or like a flip-flop or a sandal that has a lot of good support that you know is going to be comfortable to wear, something that can get wet and it won't matter.
Yeah, that's a huge one in Florida in particular, not so much Disneyland.
Right, yes.
Once in a while Disneyland, but mostly in the fall and winter.
Yeah. Kathy, do you know if the resort refill cups work all year? You have to get a new one with every stay, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's got the little code on it.
The little chip is only good for, I think they extended it to when you do like length of stay. It now lasts for like up to 3 weeks or something like that. But yeah.
For Disneyland, fly into John Wayne. That's the best one for that. There's a couple others that are near Ontario. Burbank's a little farther out, but John Wayne is like 20 minutes. It's unless you hit massive LA traffic, but don't fly into LAX if you're flying to Disneyland from anywhere. I know that the tickets might be cheaper, but it is a cross town and traffic is horrible there. So just don't do it, friends.
So Uber is best from SNA. Kate, what is your experience with that?
I usually use Lyft myself just as a personal preference, but I've used both and they're fine.
I would price compare, quite honestly. On my last Disney trip, whenever we didn't want to wait for the buses, Becca and I would price compare Lyfts and Ubers to see which one was cheaper. At Disney World, Lyft 9 times out of 10 was cheaper than the Uber. So I would just
prefer it for safety things. I think they both have safety, but I've just all set up with Lyft because I really like Lyft has, and Uber might have this too. I just haven't used it in a while, but Lyft has the thing where you can like tell somebody who's out not traveling with you that they can track your ride at the same time. So I let both of my parents like to track my ride when I am taking a Lyft. So if they go into a weird place or somewhere that's unexpected, like I have somebody else outside the car that knows where I'm at and like is GPS tracking me and making sure that I'm getting there safe. And so I feel as a woman who travels solo a lot, that to me is worth a lot. So I like that. The Four Seasons located. That's a great question.
Four Seasons is in Golden Oaks.
Okay.
So it is.
My knowledge of the non-Disney hotels is not great for Florida. I know for Disneyland I got it.
It's not far from, I'm trying to think of like, Fort Wilderness is really like the next closest resort to it looks like. from what I can tell on the map that I'm looking at.
Your ideal length of trip and how long do you spend in each park? And for Disneyland, I usually recommend at minimum 3 days if you're going to do both parks. If you're going to do Disneyland and Disney World, and Disneyland and California Adventure. If you're in Disney World, I would say when I went with my family, I usually did 5 days. So I usually did one park per day and a rest day in the middle or a half day. But a week is more ideal, I'd say, to get to more and see more.
I agree. We usually do 5 full days with like bookend kind of partial days depending on when we're leaving. Because we never hop with our kids. It's just not feasible for us to do that. So we just do one park per day, and then midweek we'll do like a Disney Springs and pool day or whatever, that type of thing.
Best off-property hotel at Disneyland. You can't afford on property. It really depends on your budget. A lot of people really like the Hojo, Howard Johnson. It's really great if you have kids too, because there's a big water fountain, but it is a little bit farther of a walk. I usually recommend the Parkview Inn. It's literally right across the street. It's clean and safe. They have a lot of security. It is definitely, they have a lot of remodeled old motels there. So don't expect like Disney level properties. They're going to be remodeled properties, but I do like that one a lot. And then I stayed in the Best Western Park Place Inn next door. It's right next door to it. And then the Tropicana, I've heard really good things too. So basically anywhere that's on Harbor Boulevard, across from that middle entrance to Disneyland, usually is going to be a pretty good place to stay, because I'll have not very far walk, and usually fairly affordable as well. So that's but yeah, Parkview, I stayed at Parkview for years. I like them a lot, and they do give a return discount if you go there more than once.
If you are not on our Discord, hit that link in our bio and join the Walrus Carp Pocket Fam Discord. We have an entire channel on there for Mom Street USA. We get questions and info, and we answer questions and all of the things on there with all of our lovely community members. So feel free to join us over there. And before we go, if you are new to Mom Street, I think we had a couple new friends that joined us this evening. We go live pretty consistently every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Some of our shows are more centered around topics that we do podcasts. So if you're interested in the topics that we've talked about, you can find our podcast and our YouTube links both in our bio. So all of the episodes up to this point that we have done, minus one snack episode that TikTok never gave us the ability to download. Besides that, everything else that we have done since the beginning of Mom Street is available in podcast form and in YouTube form, so you guys can check those out. Thank you guys, and appreciate all your gifts tonight. You guys have been very generous. Thank you guys so much. As always, anything that we make on these live streams goes directly back into our community via giveaways. So you guys are just funding those giveaways for the rest of our community. So we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you hanging out with us, and we will see you guys all again soon.
See you. Thank you guys for the chat. It was super fun.
Bye.
Have a good night.